This is the Milo Sweet Podcast, where you'll learn to get unstuck. Start now. Conquer life's challenges by learning to do difficult. Find quick and clever ways to overcome. Wait, did you think life was going to be easy? Remember, all of your excuses are now dead to me. Let's get started. Guess what time it is? It's time for you to hit the subscribe button and find just 1% that you think will benefit from this. But if you're feeling a little generous, right? Or you're super free with your time right now, probably doing nothing because you're listening to this. Well, maybe if you're doing something, actually just make yourself free right now. Hit subscribe. What are you waiting for? Hit it. Come on. Hit subscribe. All right, welcome to the Milo Sweet Podcast, Marie. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's hear a little bit about yourself.
I am a full-time teacher, part-time author, and I feel like I wear a lot of hats because I work at a private school. So I've been teaching 6th through 8th grade, and it's just a lot of balance, especially going online as we are right now. But I really enjoy it. I love teaching, but I also love writing, and I've been writing books, and I currently have 2 books published. Toothbreaker is one, and A Tanya's Worth is another. They're both YA Christian fantasy. And I'm currently in the process of working on a sequel to my main series with A Tanya's Worth. The second book is called A Tanya's Calling. And so I'm working on books, and that's mainly what I do in my spare time. For fun, though, I will go horseback riding with my husband or garden outside in my porch. And I love plants and growing things and stuff like that. So that's mainly what I've been doing, and that's who I am.
Well, I actually see a pattern for growing things in your life. You're teaching, that's growing someone's mind and their heart and their future. And then you're writing, that's growing someone's thought, stretching their brains. And horseback riding, I'm not sure. I guess you're growing your muscles there.
Yeah,
and gardening is growing too. So that I love that. Now, we didn't plan to talk about this, but now I want to take a little turn. What is it like to put everything online as a private teacher? Because I think perspective right now is super important for everyone. Right now, there is maybe from my perspective, if I was paying someone to teach my child, and now I am paying them to teach my child, I'm kind of like, what? That's not what I'm paying you for. But I think hearing your perspective could be really helpful and allow people to give a lot of grace in this time.
Yeah. We've been telling our parents look, we're not asking you to teach your child. If anything, we're just asking you to keep them accountable for the work we're giving them. Because I record all of my lectures online using an app called loom.com. Mm-hmm. And I use that, and I record all my lectures. And then I'm also available for my students from 8 to 3, basically normal school hours, for them to get on Google Hangouts, Zoom, whatever works for them, and help them with their homework. So really, I don't feel like the parents should be, it depends, of course, on your school district or what they're doing. But in our case and scenario, we are not asking our parents to teach the kids. We're just asking them to say, okay, did you get your homework done? Are you working on stuff? Do you need to ask the teacher? Just asking them questions and seeing where they're at more than anything, to keep them accountable, just like you would at home. So like if they went to school at a normal day and they came home and you asked them, what do you have for homework? And then they would hopefully be able to tell you. In the same way, that's what I think the teachers are expecting parents to do. It's the same role. It's just a little bit different in that some teachers might have live sessions, like we do occasionally have live sessions that their kids have to be on for. So it might be like, okay, well, I need to make sure my kid can have access to some sort of technology, whether it's a phone or a computer, and make sure they get on live during those times. or they're just listening to videos. But it's very different whatever age group you have. I have middle school students, so they're kind of independent as it is, so they can kind of navigate things already and have basic computer skills. But for, someone who's in kindergarten or something, that might be a lot harder, and you might have to do a lot more work as a parent. And it's unfortunate that we've had to go into this lockdown, just because I know that the teachers desperately want to help their students and love their students so much, but have difficulties doing it in an online platform for the little kids. I think it's a lot easier for the preteens and the teenagers, because for the most part, as a parent, your job is to go, okay, did you get your homework done? Did you get what you're supposed to be doing done? Versus the little kids, it's like, okay, how do I even navigate that with them? And what is the teacher asking of them? And when are they going to be live, or are they going to be live, and all that? So that's kind of my tips for parents, I guess, is just know that unless you are becoming a stay-at-home teacher, something that the teachers are trying their best to communicate and are trying to reach across the table, the metaphoric table here, and just try and help them to the best of their ability, because I know that's what teachers really want to do.
That's super insightful. I think it's super important for us to have perspective, because when you're in your home and you're not able to really connect with people, it's very easy to get caught up in your own perspective. So I think that's very helpful. And I like that you said that we're asking them to help to teach, or help for accountability's sake. And that kind of changes the perspective, because I do have some friends, their kids are in private school, and they have the exact same setup that you're talking about. But there's just a type of guilt that comes with that, and just this, there's an expectation we put on ourselves. So we look at things from a certain lens. So I think that was solid advice, and that can hopefully free some people to just think and walk circumspectly around this, to say, like, what do I really need to get the desired result that the teacher's asking for? That's also beneficial for my sanity and for my kid. Yeah. So let's change it up a little bit. You said that you've written 2 books. You work full-time as a teacher, which is insane. How do you start writing? We might have some writers out there, or people that are saying, hey, I am very creative. I have things I want to say. Where do you begin? How do you start?
I would say it's kind of like with teaching, same thing. Start with the end in mind. What do you want to accomplish? Because there's so many different types of writing out there. If you are a blog writer and you want to write blogs, okay, then you need to set aside time every day to write your blog, whatever that might be. If you want to write a nonfiction book, you have to set aside time to plan and think, what do I want my book mainly to be about? What message do I want people to hear from it? If it's a fiction book, you might have to spend time thinking about the story itself and the characters involved. And so I do feel like it is a matter of, okay, first you have to think ahead, what do I want to accomplish more? Like, what matters more to me? Is it my blog? Is it my website? Is it, my social media? Is it my email? Is it this book that I want to get finished? Whatever writing you have to do, you have to think, what is it that I'm trying to get out of it? Because when I started writing my book, it was because I've always wanted to write a book, and I felt like God was calling me to do that. And I just took small steps to get there. And so I guess my first tip is to keep the end in mind, what you want to accomplish. And then the second tip is to set aside small amounts of time that you can catch in between of life's events. So for me, it is, I get up earlier than I need to, and I write 30 minutes a day. And that 30 minutes is how I finished over a 60,000 word book.
Wow.
And but it wasn't overnight, it was 6 months of hard work every morning, making sure I got up, even though I'm tired and not necessarily a morning person, and doing it. Because
you're not? What time do you get up?
I get up at 5 a.m.
Ooh, I love the 5 a.m. hour. To me, sorry, I just have to pivot really quick. It is, for those that are not like morning people, you don't have to be a morning person, but if you're a result driven or productivity driven, yeah, I can say that word, person, then you're missing out. Like, I'm not saying you have to do it, but there's something that happens at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. The world is so quiet and it's just you. And I think like it is the best time for me to have clarity and focus and really like think. I feel like my best self shows up at that hour, you know? So just food for thought, because I do like that you said you're not a morning person. Sometimes you do what you don't want to do to get where you need to go. Exactly. So continue. So your next tip, I'm listening.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that, you know, I'm probably more of a morning person than most people in the fact that I am awake by 7 or 8. But I always take a little bit to get started, but that's the point. That's why I did it, is because I wanted to, and that was my goal. You know, my goal was to finish a book, and I knew that it would take consistent hard work to get there. So that's tip number 2 is, you know, consistency is key, doing it in small fragments over time. And then I guess tip number 3 would be that realizing it's okay that your style isn't someone else's style. So, you know, my friend, she is a full-on what's called a pantser in the writing world, where she just writes by the seat of her pants, and she also has to have long periods of time. So she's not really much of a scheduler, but she will at least once a week sit down and just write for like 4 hours at a time. But that's her. You know, I can't do that. I can't sit and write for 4 hours at a time, as much as I would love to sometimes. But I feel like my attention strays and I get distracted by things, and that's not me. But that's okay, because she's her and I'm me. And what I need is something different than what she needs to get it done. But she's written 3 or 4, I think she's on her 5th book or something like that. So obviously it works for her, and I can't sit there and have comparisonitis. You know, I think that oftentimes we look at people and we think, oh, they have it all together, or they know what they're doing. But really, everyone has a different style of writing, a different style of living, and sometimes you can't just look around, but instead look at yourself and think about my personality and what time I have and how I can fit in things. So for example, as a teacher, I knew if I tried to fit in writing at the end of the day, it wasn't going to happen, because I'm so tired and exhausted by the time I get home, just because teaching takes up so much energy to manage children and then grade and then lesson plan, and then afterwards make sure you got everything and all the meetings you have to go to. By the time I get home, you know, I'm ready to kick it back. I don't want to write. But I knew if I started out the beginning of my day with writing and devotions, that it would be fresher, that I would be more willing to do it. And so, but that's my personality. Maybe that's not you. Maybe you're a night owl and you actually would work better when all the kids are asleep. That's okay. And so I think that's a good thing to keep in mind.
I love that, because I think that you actually just simplify a super complex thing in my brain as well. It's just sometimes you feel like it has to be a certain way, and if you're not following this or what you see around you, then it's not working, and that's not true. I think you allow the results to speak for themselves. Oh, I finished something in 30 minutes. That is a result, and that is the desired result, and that is important. So how do you edit or revise? Because that was a news flash to me. I did a webinar, like I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was with a couple authors talking about how to write. And I was perplexed that they go through 10 to 50 edits on a book. And I don't know, I just thought that was like, I don't know, fascinating to just say like, hey, it's okay if it starts out super crappy. It doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. So how do you revise or do your editing?
So yeah, that I totally agree with those authors. You go through a lot of revisions before it even gets before the public eye. For me personally, I recognize that editing is not my number one strength. And I can edit. I know it sounds silly since I'm an English teacher, but I can edit I know it's a contradiction. I'm a contradiction. Um, I can edit for grammar, spelling, punctuation, but I cannot pick up on some of the little things like changing tenses, um, the character development, plot holes, uh, things that descriptions that don't quite work. So I realized that about myself. And so what I have tried to use is I have tried to use Grammarly, as well as I heard about Pro Writing Aid, which is great for catching tenses, because Microsoft Word doesn't catch tenses. It catches grammar and spelling. But so catching tense problems, catching passive voice, which is a big issue with a lot of writers. And so I plan on using those aids to help me. Only so that when I hand it over to my editor, because I do hire an editor for my books, and I highly suggest doing so for everyone else. When I hand it over to my editor, then she can concentrate on the development part of it, like character development, plot holes, and how well my ideas are conveyed, instead of being worried about, oh, this is passive voice or that noun doesn't work. I don't want her being tripped up about the grammar. I'd rather her be thinking about my development overall and helping me create a tighter story. But I will say, though, even after she does that, because she did like development and grammar for me, she worked so hard in my last book on that. Even after she did that, I quickly realized it still needed another edit after I implemented the changes. So I implemented all her changes and then found out from other readers, no, you still have errors in there, because when you change something, you forgot to do this, or this was cut off and you didn't notice. So then you have to go through another round of edits. So it's like a multi-step process. And I think the key to it is that being open to criticism and also understanding where the criticism stops. And what I mean by this is that I'll just give you an example to really hit it home, because I feel like it's the best way to understand it. My friend is a flowery language person, long description person in her writing. So when she was editing mine, she kind of wanted the same thing for my writing. Well, my style is not the same. I am a to the point kind of person, but with dramatic points, like dramatic tension. So when she had a discussion about, I would end each of my scenes with one sentence. So one of my sentences was, the blood would never wash away from Kiel's heart. And it was talking about the guilt he felt about something that had happened. And my editor read that and said, you need to move this sentence into the paragraph before it. And I was like, no, that's not my style. I want to keep it by itself. And so I did keep it by itself because it was a stylistic choice. On the other hand, when she said, this is underdeveloped, this is a way that you can improve it, I did take those to heart. So I feel like there's a balance, even when you have an editor looking at your baby, as people like to call their writing, just to say, okay, this part is valid, this part is my style, and recognizing the difference and being willing and open to hearing those things, because that is very important for improving as a writer.
I think you just hit the nail on the head on something totally different. I don't know if you know how much information you hold inside of you, Marie, but you said you have to know when the criticism stops. And I think that this is key for everyone. Whoever's listening right now, wherever you're at in your life, criticism is crucial in growing. It's just part of how life works. You need to be able to have accountability, know when you're doing things right or wrong. You need to know the perspective. And as you pointed previously, just the desired result. So criticism really can help shape you to get your desired result. And if you have that in mind, you have a great lens to see the criticism through, wherever you're at in your life, and being able to hear that. But you also have to know that it has a domino effect. Like you mentioned, when you make a correction, it actually affects other things, and you have to see how that plays a part. And it also has an end point, meaning just because someone made a critique doesn't mean it applies to everything in your life, or that you should take it super, super personal. So I just think that that's really like, that's a huge part of how I live life. It's just being open to what people have to say, but also knowing how to filter it and know with your desired result, understanding your writing style, understanding how to reflect on that and what's super important to you. It gives you the ability to know when to accept something and apply it, and also know when to say, hey, I don't think that's not really going to help me get where I'm trying to go. That's helping you get where you're trying to go, but I do appreciate the feedback. So I really love that. Although it's for writing, I really think it applies to a lot of aspects of our lives.
All right, that's another episode in the books. Hello? I said it's over. Why are you still listening? Like, seriously, the episode is over. If you're still listening right now, you know what? You're probably a chronic procrastinator. Guess what? I'm still listening too. Come on, for real, seriously. We gotta go do something productive. No, like, for real. No, for real. Okay, you can keep listening.